Hi guys, I'm Loai with you in the new lecture, and in this lecture what you want to do is to explore shape layers and how to create shapes and how to use certain modifier keys. In the previous lecture I showed you how to create a composition. I hope you still have it. If not, just create a new composition so we can create some shape layers. I will put it here fit to 100% so we can see everything. To create a shape layer, you come to the shape here in your toolbar and you can long click and a small menu will open here. You can see the different shapes that you can create. Let's choose a rounded rectangle tool. The corners are rounded, so you click and drag and you see that you have created a shape that is a rectangle and it has rounded corners. Now I will release here and explain to you that as soon as you created a shape, you release the mouse button, a shape layer has been created that has a content, and inside the content there is a rectangle. So this rectangle is inside the shape layer, inside the content. That's very important because now we can have other shapes inside the contents here. You will see that in the section of creating complex shapes. Fine, I will delete the shape layer. Now you notice when you choose the shape tool, some other options will appear here. For example, if you are in text tool, they will go away. Choose a shape tool and you have the tool create shape or tool create masks. We'll see about this later. And you have the fill option, the stroke and the stroke width. So you can come and adjust these before you start creating your shape, or you can create your shape and go to, for example, the word fill. And you have several options here. You want no fill at all, you want a solid fill or a linear gradient fill, or maybe you want a radial gradient. So your choice here for what you want. I will cancel this one. You can also come to the color and of course change the color to anything you want and decide this is the color you want and then click OK. I'll just click cancel here. You can come also to the stroke word and then you have the same options to have no stroke at all, or a solid stroke, or a linear gradient stroke, or radial gradient stroke, and you need to adjust it. It takes a lot of work with the radial to be really quite good. So I will just cancel here. Also you can adjust the width of the stroke itself. You can make it bigger, smaller, the way you want. You notice how the stroke works. Half of it, for example, this is 90, so 45 is outside the limits of the layer and 45 is inside the limits of the layer. This is very important to note. So the stroke is divided, it's not totally outside or totally inside. I'll put it back to 5 and I will delete this rectangle to start showing you how to use the modifier keys. Let's take the rounded rectangle again, click and drag. We opened a rectangle. Before you release the mouse button, you can use the up arrow to increase the roundness of the corners, or the down arrow to decrease the roundness. That's very fine. Also, you can use the right arrow to have full roundness of the rectangle for the rectangle, of course, and you can use the left arrow to have no roundness at all. So you can switch in between and decide exactly how you want the roundness. An important key here is the space bar. If you press space bar, then you can move your rectangle and put it anywhere you want, very precisely. That's one that is very important. If you want your rectangle to be a square with, the two sides to be equal, then you press shift and the sides of your rectangle will be equal. And that will be a square now with rounded corners. Now, you notice that I started clicking here and dragging out. If I click and press Ctrl and drag out, the center of the rectangle will be my first click. You notice I clicked here, then I open. This is how to create, a rectangle with a center that you know exactly where you want to put. Of course, if you press the shift, now they are equal sided and the center is your first click. You press the space bar and you can move it anywhere you want. Okay, cool. So these are the modifier keys for a rounded rectangle. Let's delete our rounded rectangle and create other shapes. Now let's go and create, for example, an ellipse. If you click and drag, the ellipse will start from the corner. If you wanted to start from the center, meaning where you have clicked, you press Ctrl and it will open up. Pressing Shift will make it a perfect circle. Now the other modifier keys, only the spacebar will work here. The left, up and down arrows will not work. There is nothing to work on. Fine. Now let's move on. Let's go create another shape. For example, we take a polygon. If you click on the polygon and drag, you will have the initial polygon. This is the preset. And you see it's scaling up and at the same time rotating with the mouse. If you don't want to rotate it at all, it's annoying you, you can press shift and scale it up and down only. Now if you press control here, it doesn't do anything. The amusing thing here, you have the up arrow that will give you more sides or corners, and you have the down arrow that will give you less. This is the way to make a rectangle, for example, to draw a polygon and make it 3 sides. Now another nice key is the right arrow. If you press, it will start to poker or bloat, one of these. I really don't know which one, but nevertheless it will give you a nice shapes and so on. If you press the left key, now you notice it's going down and it's gonna go and create a more interesting shape. For example, you can increase the number of corners, increase the pokering or bloating, and you have a very interesting shape here that you can use. Fine, let's move on, and we will create a new shape now. Let's investigate or explore the star. If you click and drag out, of course all of them are starting from the first click, that's the center. Then you have your star, of course, is sizing and turning at the same time. Now the control key has a nice function here. You know, you have the inner radius and the outer radius. If you press control, you will be increasing the outer radius or increasing the spikes. So you release the control and then you can reduce, then press control again and you have, you know, a starfish. Cool. If you press the shift now, it will not move anymore. It will not rotate, in fact. Okay. Now using the up arrow, you will add spikes if you want, or corners, the way you want it. And the down arrow, of course, will reduce them. If you press on the right, it will poker it or bloat it, one of these, the one that you like, or this one will make it, you know, some interesting shapes here, right? So it's up to you to create a very nice shape. Now, after you created your last shape, what will happen, the next shape you will create will be similar to the last shape that you have created. Sometimes you don't want to do that. What you can do to reset is pretty easy, by the way. You will come to the star, for example, and double click. The original shape or the factory set shape will appear. Now after that, every other star that you draw will be, you know, identical to this one, the original one. Fine. You can do also the same for the polygon here, and you can come, you double click on the polygon, and here you are, you created a polygon which is set to factory defaults. Fine. Let's delete all this. Now create a rectangle now, and I want you to notice about the anchor point. Click on the rectangle, click and drag, here we are. Now you notice in the middle here you have this shape like a circle with some, you know, arrows coming out. This is the anchor point of the layer. If you select the layer, this is the anchor point of the layer. This anchor point is used to scale or to rotate. For example, if you take your rotation tool here, you can choose it from the menu or press W. You can come to your rectangle and rotate it. You can decide how to rotate. If you press shift, then it will, you know, snap to 45 degrees, which is pretty convenient, by the way, when you're doing animations. Okay, you can decide like, okay, I don't want that. I want to rotate around this corner here. So you'll take the pan behind tool and move it, you know, to any corner. Now, why it's snapping? Because I use the snapping, and you can snap it anywhere you want on the corner. If you don't use snapping, you can freely move it anywhere you want, and you can lose control also. Let's take snapping and put it on this corner. Cool. Now you take your rotation tool, and if you rotate, you see that is rotating on the anchor point. Now it's important to notice this is the anchor point for the shape layer. Now if I come to rectangle here, you notice that these small squares here have changed. These are the delimiters, and the anchor point size has become smaller. Now I am rotating the shape itself, not the layer. Okay, if you have two shapes, you will notice the difference. But for now, you will be rotating the shape. So when you have these white rectangles here, you'll be rotating the shape. When you have the blue rectangles out, you will be rotating the layer. If you come to the shape here, you can also change the anchor point. It's very nice. Let's put it here and decide to rotate it, for example, this way or the other way, anywhere you want. Now this is how to create shapes. It's very easy, very simple. It's not complicated, but there are very many modifier keys. What I would like you to do is to go to After Effects. I hope you're there already, and try to use the modifier keys, try to play around, create all the shapes that you want to create. It's very interesting that you learn how to create shapes the way you want. We are going to use text and shape to create animations. Thank you very much for listening. This is Luai with you, and I see you in the next lecture.